And if she doesn't want to, that's fine too. But and there's some other ones. Everyone, I want to hear everyone, but I'm especially excited for a couple that I hope.
Well, I hope Carissa was open to it, and I hope that she'll help us get a favorable response from Sarah. But I mean, some of you guys that talk to Sarah once in a while, you got to convince her to do it, and the reasons why, because here's what my experience is with everyone, but this is the point, is like, not everyone's life is the same. And some people have faced challenges that are very personal. And I hope that they're willing to open up a little bit to family, because it's only by sharing these challenges that everybody else can grow and progress. And we face challenges in our lives that in our family, nobody even knows about. And if you've watched the videos, you've heard some things probably that made your mouth drop open, but or maybe not. I mean, I think some of the nephew struggles surprise some of the nieces. It may not surprise all of them, those of you who are maybe a little more aware of things, but even Tina, she watches it and she's just like, oh, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you've been married to me. I'm like the dirtiest person on the earth. You've been married to me for 30 years.
What I love about it is that people, and I told Laren this, I think you are probably the only uncle or aunt who can ask these questions and get honest responses from us because of who you are and your willingness to get to know us. I mean, I have memories from almost every uncle and aunt, just throughout my life, just interactions. But for some reason, I think just because of who you are and how you approach us, I think you'll get more honest answers or answers, period, than anyone else could. And so I love it. I love it. It's great.
I actually appreciate you saying that, because to me it means these things. I got these things because and I've got different things that fit on them, but they won't stay in my little tiny eardrums. I appreciate you saying that. That's I think it's a very kind thing to say. It's a compliment. I take it as a compliment. I feel like in many ways, I married the siblings' youngest sister. And so while I wasn't one of you kids, we did everything, I mean, particularly with the nephews, but all you guys, we talk and laugh and play and, probably told a dirty joke once in a while. I don't know. But I do feel like we know each other quite a bit. Do we know each other, I think, enough to know that we're safe with each other? Yeah. And I had an experience, and I don't think Tennille would mind me sharing this because I shared it in her interview a little bit, but I don't know if I implied part of it or if I actually told the story, but I saw her at Costco one day, and we caught eyes, but she immediately turned and tried to make a beeline for somewhere else. And she was having a bad day and just feeling, and I when I saw her, I thought, my first thought was, if I didn't know her, I would be slightly offended at that. But I thought, she's going through some stuff right now, so I'm not going to let her get away. And, we had a nice little chat, and I'm glad, actually, because it could be this way with anybody. Anybody you encounter, you don't know what kind of day they're having. You don't know what they're going through. And man, don't limit those opportunities because of insecurity. Do you know what I mean? Uh, I probably understood what she was going through just because I've gone through it and didn't want to see anybody. But it was funny. She has this full cart or two. I can't remember. It seems like she had one in front and one in back, moving slow through the store, so she couldn't really get away. And but yeah. So anyway, the purposes are working. I'm so glad that you agreed to do an interview. I just spent the weekend with your mom and dad.
That's
Good
always
time. No, it really was. It really was. You know, I mean, I don't think we've ever had a bad relationship necessarily. But I think it's getting better all the time. And so, and they're fantastic. It's great. They're looking so forward to their mission, and that's sort of permeating their thoughts. So that's kind of exciting. So tell me what's going on with you. I mean, you're all the way up in Moses Lake in the land of the north, the frozen tundra. And Severin, is he farming still? Is he farming?
Yeah,
Okay.
he just got done planting potatoes for this year, and so that's always nice. Once most of the crops are in the ground, that's always a nice feeling, you know.
Oh yeah.
They're in the ground, and it's always a gamble. You know, farming is a gamble.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this year they're trying to grow some arugula. So
arugula.
Arugula seed. So that's going to be an interesting.
Where do you use arugula?
Spicy lettuce.
Okay, all right.
So
actually, it sounds kind of delicious.
Our oldest said, Dad made me try it yesterday, and it was so gross. So anyway, but they do a lot of seed crops because they do a lot of corners, and in corners you don't need a lot of land. So this year they do cilantro, they do arugula, they do carrot seed. What other seeds do they do? They have some peas this year. Some years we do sunflowers, which I love the sunflower fields because they're just beautiful. Wheat, potatoes.
Okay, enough about that big stud. He's going to agree to an interview. He's going to agree to an interview anyway. I hope he does too. Because I do too, and there'll be a number that, like, I was surprised that Cole was so down to do it, you know. But you'll have to work on Severin at night if he says no. So.
Yeah, well, I did. I was like, you should reach out. Do you want to do it? He's like, no. He is actually really shy. And so it's going to take a little work for us to get him.
Well, I think that in light of the fact that this is really helping people love him and him love other people and spreading the gospel, I can't believe that he would sidestep such an opportunity.
Right?
You did well. Tina was saying today, you know, Tina loves Tom Selleck. Like, if Tom Selleck was here right now, that would be it. I would be out. She's not home right now, thank goodness. But she told me today, she's like, you know, that Severin's starting to look like Tom Selleck. I was like, what did you just say?
Yeah, so he can grow facial hair. Like, I always said I was going to marry a swimmer because they weren't hairy, right? And so I married the lumberjack instead. And he can grow facial hair, like, every week he can have a beard. And he does have a beard every week. And so, like, when he grows it out for a couple weeks, then he starts to, like, do shaving funny. Like, he'll look like Wolverine, or he'll do lamb chops, or he'll do whatever. He can do whatever. And he does a little bit every day during the week, knowing that on Saturday he'll clean it up for Sunday. But with masks and COVID, he doesn't have to shave.
Right.
And so last Sunday he actually said, I was going to get up and bear my testimony, but then I thought I'd have to pull my mask down. And he had a funky, I don't even know what it was last week, but it was funny. And he's like, so I didn't bear my testimony. But it was just really funny because, yeah, he had a mustache last night when Tina saw him. And so, anyway.
That's funny. So, okay. So, how is mommyhood?
Um, hmm. I I'm not a great mom. Um,
Oh boy,
I'm
here we
already
go.
crying, right? Um, no, we love babies, and that's why we keep having them. But then they grow up, right? This year
Yeah,
has been interesting because I homeschooled this year because of COVID, and when they originally told us all the different things that was going to happen, when it closed down in March, I had three on a computer, one with kind of some learning disabilities. It took me 5 hours just to work with two of them, and the kindergartner was like, "Sorry, hun, I don't have I don't have this hour. I don't have time. There's no more time in the day." And so I didn't want to do computers because I knew it wouldn't work for our family. And we don't have fiber out here, and so to have all of them on Zoom meetings, and I just didn't even know if I was going to work. So we homeschooled this year, and I've really enjoyed some aspects of it and not other aspects of it. Um, there are definitely some fun things about being a mom, but it's a lot harder than Sherry and my mom and Sister Hawkins. Like they all made it look. And so it's definitely a learning curve all the time. What works with one child, as you know, doesn't work with the other child. Tennille mentioned trying to raise my kids the way dad and mom raised us hasn't worked for me. And I think part of that is Severin is not like my dad. I can't be like my mom and Severin not be like my dad in the discipline and respect. I mean, we had a healthy respect for my dad, like if dad said something, that's the way it was. And Severin, I think he's just not as scary as my dad. Anyway. And so it doesn't work that way. And so there's definitely I think having them so close together too is a challenge. Our oldest just turned 11, and this summer we'll have our seventh. And so we have seven
woo,
kids in 11 years, and all of them are girls. So, well, Jagger, we have one boy, and so they all like the same things. And
Jagger, as in Mick.
well, kind of. He's got moves like Jagger.
That's great. That's awesome.
But but they are all so close. They all like the same things. They all want this. It's like you have to have four of something because they all anyway. But there are fun things. And Kyrie, our oldest, is starting to get to, like, yesterday she wanted to make bread, and so that's kind of fun when your oldest wants to learn to make bread and stuff. I think the hardest thing for me, honestly, is they're very emotional. Probably because they're girls. But Severin's pretty emotional too. Like, I mean, I don't feel like growing up with all my sisters and stuff that we were really emotional, like PMSy and stuff. And I'm thinking, okay, you guys haven't even hit the teenage years, and we are growing I mean, don't talk to me, mom, and all this kind of stuff already. And I'm like, oh, okay, I don't even know what to do right now. Like the other day, one of them said something to me, and I just looked at her like, I don't even know how to process what you're saying right now. Like, I don't even understand your emotions or what's happening or why you're acting this. Like, I don't understand it. I don't know how to help you. So I'm always like, tell me in words what you're thinking. Like, tell me. And he's like, Haley, they can't tell you. They don't know how to process what they're feeling either. Like, they can't tell you. And I'm like, well, how do I help them if they can't tell me? He's like, just be more loving. And I'm like, yeah, that's not the thing you should have said. But, I think I'm in the middle of the spectrum as far as I like it more than Laren is enjoying it right now. But I don't know that I love it like Blair loves it. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
I'm kind of in the middle. I think Brielle really loves it too, like Blair. Um, the question of why are we still having more children? I think about that a lot. I think if Severin wasn't as great and amazing as he is with babies, like if he could feed the baby, he would totally, I mean, he would nurse the baby. I mean, he does everything. He will cuddle the baby. He will change yuckiest diapers ever. Like, he loves babies. And if he wasn't as willing to help as he is, we would have stopped a long time ago. But in fact, I asked him, so your questions that you've been asking everyone when I go on my walks during the day, I think about my answers.
Thinking about them. Yeah.
I'm not very good on the spot.
And so I'm gonna have to ask you new questions then.
I think about the questions and I think, well, what do I really think? Like, is my first response what I really think? Or so and I actually asked him the other night, I'm like, do you like being a dad? Like, do you like that? Like, and his answer was, I love babies, And I was like, well, they grow up, like. So
about 12 years old, he's checking out. That's
go to grandpa. Grandpa will teach you how to work. But so there are definitely good days and bad days. But I think that's the way it is with any job, right?
Sure.
You have days you look forward to and days you don't look forward to.
Absolutely.
It's definitely a learning process for me. Like, how do I help them process these emotions so that sometimes I really fear that I will push my kids into like schizophrenia or something, because I'm like, I don't know how to help you. Like, I don't know how to help you process these feelings that you're having in a constructive way. You can be upset, you can be sad, you can be angry, you can be frustrated, and that's okay. But we need to learn how to process them in a healthy way. Hitting your brother or sister or running away or starting to scream is not a healthy way to process emotion, even for adults. I mean, that's not a healthy way to process emotion. So,
right.
That's what I'm learning every day.
Well, I was looking at they're so cute. Looking at your Facebook page. I mean, what a bunch of.
Look at Severin's more. I don't do much. Severin does a lot.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not very good at posting. Severin posts a lot of pictures.
Let's just pop right over to Severin so I can
You'll have
talk.
To look at his. Yeah.
There we go. Oh, he's got Christ up there.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah, he's got lots of.
Yeah, you can kind of, not that you could predict anything necessarily, but I could have called him being a good daddy.
Oh, yeah.
And people have. Go ahead.
I was going to say, his dad is like that. Like, his dad will call, hey, I need some riders, and take Jagger out for hours in the truck, or I need some helpers, and he'll take the kids out and have them, he's teaching them how to work, but Kyrie's driving truck for him so he can burn weeds, but he's teaching him how to work. And he's, and Randy will be, he'll be like, hey, I'll hold the baby, baby, where, I don't know, my dad doesn't really, he's like, if they're not crying and will sit here and watch game with me, then they can sit on my lap, but Seb's dad is all about, he's all about playing with the kid. It's just Severin learned it from his dad. And I am so blessed. I could not have asked for a better father for the kids.
You deserve it. You deserve it.
I've never considered myself attractive at all.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Do you see your husband?
Well, that's why, honestly, Tim, we went on a blind date, and I'm like, he is way too good looking for me. Like, there's no way he's going to call me back. Like, why would he, like, I was in a hoodie. Like, it was a blind date. It was just like, we're going to do this right now. I was in a brown hoodie and jeans, and I'm like, okay, I guess we're going to do this, you know? And actually, we stopped by Aunt Brenda's house. We were having a family party, and I'm like, I have to stop by the family party first.
Right.
And then we came up to Moses Lake. It was me and a girlfriend from nursing school. And once I saw him and he opened the door, I'm like, oh, he is way too hot for me. Like, there is no way. Like, we'll have fun. And maybe that's why it works, because I was like, who cares? Like, it's not going to go anywhere. He's never going to. So I was more myself, you know? And because I was like, okay, he's never going to ask me out again anyway.
I could see that. But
so,
yeah, but I see where you're coming from there, but he wouldn't. Trust me, he wouldn't have moved forward with you unless he thought you were hot.
Well,
you're hot. You're hot.
I agree now. Like, he wouldn't have. But at the time, you know, I mean, I never went on. Like, so there was a huge group of LDS girls, not very many boys our age, and I sat home prom. You know, I
all the good-looking girls do.
I heard your argument, and I'm still trying to process that. But I was the friend. I was the jock girl, you know, I was the friend. Lots of the guys came and talked to me about the girls they liked. I had a crush from the time I was in 4th grade till I graduated. Same kid.
Who?
David Lee.
Really? Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And yeah, that's a story we might get to. But you know, I liked the same guy the whole time, and I thought I was really, like, I thought nobody knew, but later I found out, yeah, he knew. Everybody knew. But yeah, so that's just so interesting to me, because I've wondered how people perceived me in high school, you know, in junior high and high school. And so that's really interesting to me that would even, I mean, I still am, but I'm probably the most naive person you will ever meet. And I kind of keep it that way on purpose because I don't want to know.
I think guys process stories like that through fantasy. I think you might have been the subject of a lot of people's fantasy. And I know that's weird for you. No, I'm serious. I know it's weird for you. Because listening to you talk about yourself, but you know, the thing is like, and maybe it kept you safe, right?
Yeah.
Because the thing about it seems like all of the girls in our family is they don't particularly have a ton of confidence. Now, that may be true of women in general. I don't know. Maybe if you were both cute and a lot of confidence, maybe that's a recipe for disaster. I don't know.
I do have lots of questions for you, though, Uncle Tim.
Yeah.
And not even just about you, like growing up. And I didn't know you grew up on a dairy. Like, that's awesome.
You didn't? Yeah, I thought that was pretty well known. But
I did know you were adopted. When you told, was it Drew? I mean, I did know that part. Which also, because I love family history, I'm curious how you do your family history.
I use online tools because I had a mother that did all of our 9 generations, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
So your question was my family history. So my mom did a lot of our genealogy, but when you go in and look at the electronic services where you can enter stories and other anecdotes, there's nothing there, or very little. There's some things because our families, you know, there's like the Lots, and there's a lot of other people who I'm related to, and they'll put up some things here and there, but they won't put up everything. And so I found it fun because I know stories, and I have books, and I have things that apparently either no one else has, or they're not putting the material up for other people. And I'm putting it up because I think it's fascinating for me to go and look and and it's frustrating when there's nothing there about someone. So I put it up for the next guy or the next gal, whoever it is that is really wanting to know, who is having a hard time locating things. There are things like my uncle Henry Peterson. My mom told me that story, and then I found a journal somewhere. But I mean, he's related to everybody, and how come nobody knows? I don't know. Plus, I believe it's like these interviews. Again, I believe everyone else should be much more vulnerable than me, but I like knowing that he was dismissed from BYU, or Brigham Young Academy, actually. I don't know if I shared this or not, but he got dismissed for teaching the theory of evolution. Not pure Darwinian theory, because, there is no evidence of species jumping from one to the other. There's, within the species line, there's certainly evolution. We're evolving all the time. But the irony is that the very theory of evolution that they teach today is the one that he got dismissed for. So that was interesting to me. But that's one of those stories that very few people know, even in the family. And, when I started finding things like that, I realized how important that it is, because it's like these interviews. There is great strength that comes from knowing our foibles, knowing the things we struggle with, the things that we've overcome, the way that we overcome them. You mentioned, the boys and their struggles and whatnot. Well, even their mother said up at the cabin that she loved knowing what was going on there, even though I kind of think she already knew. But not just that. I think it was, it had to be Tennille. It had to be Tennille. But as a mother, so even though you're married to a man and he can tell you things, it's not as, for whatever reason, it's just not as credible as it is when it comes from outside of your immediate circle, right? So when a mother hears that boys have that struggle, she's not as freaked out by her own boys experimenting. And it is normal, and it isn't like, it doesn't mean anything except, and women would probably struggle too if their appendages were on the outside of their bodies, it's a challenge. It's a challenge, but knowing that's one example. Just I use that one because it's out there and everybody mentions it now. But that helps everybody. It helps girls understand that when someone, patriarchy, says don't wear short skirts on a date, they're not being sexist. They're not telling you how to dress. They're saying, I would like to remain in control of my body, and you are making it a challenge for me. I realize it is my responsibility. But do you understand that when you're young and being close to a girl and even, dancing with a girl, for a young man is almost torturous. And so it's beneficial for that reason, and boys, it's beneficial because you think you're the only freak on the world, on the planet. Like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Well, the first time it happens, you're like, oh, you don't even understand it. I even remember the first time my body started changing. I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought, am I bleeding? I mean, I'm looking for what's going on. I was terrified, except I couldn't figure out why does it feel so good? But those are the stories that help people process, even though everybody has a different opinion about this, but I think secrets I don't think you have to bear all of your dirty laundry, but I think that it is helpful. Well, I don't even think. I know that it is helpful for all of us to know that we all have similar struggles. This is the thing that's come up with Like I thought and I know, see, nobody's picking on your mom and dad, even though it seems like they are. They're not. They're not picking on your mom and dad. There's this process of like seemingly looking out of your own circle and saying, "Ooh, that person shouldn't be doing that." Well, here's the deal. There's 7 billion people on the earth, and every single one of them are going to have sex probably at some point, right? So let's dispense with the idea that this is some kind of taboo subject, because everybody's going to experience it. That doesn't mean that you have to have movies about it, but what it does mean is that in order to know how to deal with it, you have to be open. So let's not point fingers at people and say, "Ooh, that person's bad." When you have your own issues, like even if I've never struggled with drinking coffee, for example, that gives me no right to point a finger at somebody who does. I have plenty of my own vices to deal with. And that's how we should be processing this stuff. But if someone who is struggling with it calls me and says, "Hey, I really am struggling with this. I don't know what to do."
I was going to say, on that note, I think one of Satan's big tools right now is isolation. And Cody mentioned it when he said addiction. The opposite of addiction is communication, right? Was that what it was? Or something along those lines? And I think that is so true, because all of these things, like you were just saying, are secret, in the dark. Mental health issues, sex issues, addictions, whatever they might be. If you are talking to someone about it, or if you have someone you're accountable to for that, it becomes a lot easier to battle.
True.
But if Satan can keep you isolated and alone and thinking you're the only one going through it, or you're weird, or it's against your religion, or your family's going to disown you, or your pastor's going to look, scold you in the middle of church or something, then he's winning, because you're not going to say anything. And
it's true. That's good.
I just think that's right now with COVID, that's one of the things I've seen is the isolation issue.
That's a great observation.
How he's used it to his advantage.
Yeah. I can't even remember now who said something about Satan operates in the dark, or the darkness is Satan's friend, or something along those lines, but versus the light. So yeah, that's why I think these things are going to be really helpful. Their fear of some folks is that, and I'm not sure if my own kids went through this or not, but the fear is that by knowing that someone else is struggling, that would give that might titillate someone, or that might give them a reason or an excuse to continue on with their own behavior. I disagree with that, because nobody's happy. Nobody's truly happy living lives in the dark, for lack of a better term. Are you watching The Chosen?
So I watched the first season, and Severin wasn't really interested. But I was just about to start the second season, and he's like, "No, I want to watch." I'm like, "Well, we need to watch the first season before we start the second season, because you kind of gotta." And yeah, I love it, because I love that whether we know how they really were or not, it gives you the opportunity to realize they were real people.
Yes.
So Matthew may or may not have autism, whatever, but
someone does.
He could have, yeah, exactly. That he could have, or any of them could, or that, they might have had a disagreement with their wife on, how are we going to provide for our family if you leave, if you go be a disciple, anyway. I've really enjoyed so what happened was, the first episode we started watching together as a family, and you know how Mary Magdalene's portrayed in the very first one with the devils and stuff. My kids got really scared, like, what is happening? Why this is scary, Mom? And so we didn't watch it anymore as a family. I just watched it on my own. but I'm hoping to get them back into it and just not watch that first part of that first episode,
Mm.
because they didn't like that, which I understand. It was a little, but real. But
because it's entertainment too. And so, yeah, as a parent, you've got more challenges with these things. But I'm with you. I think part of it too, though, is that I process my understanding of Jesus and the disciples more through the lens that these makers of these films understand it. I believe in a Jesus who had a sense of humor and who poked fun at himself.
He still does. I think he still
Yeah.
Does.
I won't give away the whole show, but there's a place where he's going to stay at the home of someone, and this person's at the door telling all the disciples who are going to come in and stay with him overnight. He's telling them about his rooms, and he says, now I have this room up there that belonged to my grandmother, but I won't put anyone in there because it's haunted. She's in there still. And Jesus said, ooh, I want that one. And he walked right past him. And yeah, I mean, just hilarious stuff like that. Or when, they refer to John the Baptist as creepy John, and Jesus says, ooh, I like that. Yeah. But that's the thing, is that people don't realize. They think that I think that the way that I understand other people sometimes is that I think they process things through the lens of perfection. And even though Christ was the Son of God, he had to go through mortality. He had to go through the things we go through. And so, he wasn't perfect. He was a rebel. He did not, obviously they killed him. You don't kill somebody that you love, right? You don't kill somebody you agree with. And so they disagreed with him. He, in season 2, you hear the phrase that Jesus doesn't like religion much. And the point they're making isn't religion as we understand it, although it could be. It's more like the religion of the Sanhedrin or the Sadducees and the Pharisees. I happen to think that we have our own version of Sadducees and Pharisees developing that we need to be really careful about,
I like this deal we're talking about with that, because I do think a lot of times religion gets in the way of discipleship.
Oh, she said that perfectly, didn't she? Yeah.
Yeah. And worship. And I really think it does, because lots of times we're so worried about, well, that's not in the handbook, or that's not the way we're supposed to do that, or that's not the way we've done it traditionally. When, what would the Savior do?
Right.
He wants you to love them. He wants you to accept them. He wants you to give them the opportunity to accept him. And so I think a lot of times I'm learning that. That is definitely something I'm learning. I think as we've kind of talked about these things, I, for a long time, was that black and white that my mom and dad are. But as I've seen different things or experienced different things or been in leadership positions when someone else was experiencing something different, I choose to no longer judge anyone, because I got enough on my plate that I don't really need to worry about what anyone else. I mean, I still think you need to righteously judge. Like, if there's a creepy guy on the corner, I'm not going to take all my kids to the corner,
Right.
But I think that, it's not worth my brain power or my feelings or my emotional investment to worry about something that I shouldn't be anyway.
Well, yeah, and it's nice to know that because you showed compassion to other people, maybe compassion will be thrown your way too.
I hope so, because I need it.
Me too.
I need a lot of it.
Me too. You talked about that. With the thought that came to my mind when you said that how we let religion get in the way. It's always been. I had an experience one time, even out in Basin City, which I consider to be one of the greatest places, ever. But I was coming from town. I don't know what I was doing. I think I was in a stake calling or something, but I was trying to get to church, and I got a flat tire. And it was around the corner down there, and there was I can't tell you how many. And this isn't a criticism; it's just an
How many
observation.
good LDS people drove past you and no one
Yeah, like
stopped to help?
they're late for church, right? So they can't help someone with a tire because they're late for church. And I've always thought, oh, that's very odd, you know. And I didn't have, I don't know why, but I didn't have that vehicle set up with a jack or something. There was something that was keeping me from getting that done in a hurry, and then I ended up having to walk and being a little bit bothered by that. But I also am going to cut those people a break because they're doing what they thought they needed to be doing, you know. But so you're asking me the question. So the one that I use on as far as like genealogy and research and stuff, I got hooked up with MyHeritage. Have you ever?
I haven't used MyHeritage much. I've tried it a couple times. I just done Ancestry most of the time, just because.
They're all good. I mean, what would be nice, and maybe they do have this. I find that every time I say, "Well, it would be nice if they did this," that they actually do. I just didn't know that they did. But since we have all these tools that you could export a file out of one to import into another one, right? That would be very helpful.
Yes.
And that may exist. I'm not saying I've done the research to see whether it does or doesn't, but I've found this to be very helpful. One of the things I like about MyHeritage is the way that it displays your family tree. You can display it any number of ways, and you can probably do that in other packages as well. But one of the things I loved, and I forget who this was. You watched all the interviews, so you might be able to tell me, but it could have probably come up in all of them. And you're going to experience this with your girls. I hope that your experience with Severin and your girls is somewhat similar to the way you grew up, and that your whole family loves each other. Everybody seems to be doing pretty well. But seeing that even President Nelson's daughter has challenges, and Lehi's sons had challenges, and the likelihood is that you're probably going to experience some challenges.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I hope the main thing is what you already have. You have the best part, and that is you have love. And it supersedes everything else. There's nothing else really. I mean, what are you going to do if one of your kids walks away? If you choose because they don't want to go to church, or maybe they've moved in with a boyfriend, or they've done something you disagree with, what are your options are fairly slim. If you love them, you can't just cut them off and say, you're not living the way we taught you, whatever. And you find out that if you want to have any influence or hope or love in your life with that person, the only thing you can do is love, right?
In fact, we've had with how many girls we have, and darn it, they're kind of cute.
Yeah, they are.
We've talked multiple times about how I would not be at all surprised if someone gets in a situation they don't want to be in, or they get raped, or I mean, we have 5 girls, Mike.
Yeah.
Something is going to happen.
The numbers say something's going to happen.
Yeah. And we're trying really hard right now to just have open communication. Severin takes them on dates. They go on dates, individual dates, quite a bit. We went to go get Kyrie's, just her 11-year-old well child, and they were going to give her the HPV shot without even, if I hadn't have said no or talked about it, they would have just given it to her, which is neither here nor there. Everyone has their own whatever. But on the way home, she said, Mom, what is that? And why didn't I get it? And so we had an open conversation, probably more than she wanted, on what it is, like why we didn't do it. And so I'm really hoping that we can just keep open so that if they come home from a date and something did happen, they know they can talk to mom and dad about it, that we will love them, we will help them any way we can to heal or to get medical help or whatever. I'm just counting on it. I will be very gratefully surprised if nothing happens. But we talk about the buddy system. We talk about don't going anywhere by yourself.
Yeah.
There's reasons. I think more now than before, our kids need to know the why.
Yep.
Why do we double date? Why do we do these things? Like you were saying about long skirts? I remember my dad saying, "Don't touch a boy's knee, and don't give a back rub." Like, I remember those things specifically. And at the time, you're like, why? Girls and guys think differently. Why? What's the big deal? Like, you're trying to get the guy's attention and you touch him on his leg, like, what's the big deal?
You've got it.
but now, back rubs in the front room lead to front rubs in the back room, right?
Oh my gosh, that's great.
You hear that, and Severin and I joke about it now, but at the time, I'm like, what's the big deal, Mom? Like, what? But now they need to know why.
Yeah.
Why do you tell them that?
And it sounds, and people will make a big deal politically too about, oh, you can't say that, that's sexist. But boys and girls' bodies are different. Boys are made to breed. And if you turn them on, they will be all about trying to get that done. And it's not, that doesn't make them bad. That makes them normal. That's the way God created us. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I like that. I'm going to have to tell Tina that. She'll like that. Yeah, but it is critical. Darian, you heard this already, but Darian brought this up that we didn't tell her the whys. And, your first reaction as a parent is baloney, but
and
her truth.
Their agency. Everyone does still have their agency. But yeah. I think the more we can explain the whys, they may not be as tempted, if that's the right word, to try it out for themselves.
Well, I can tell you that I did not, I know for a fact I didn't teach her or illustrate to her the way a young man's body responds to a girl's touch. There are things like even now, you're still a young mother. Even now, you can understand that intellectually, but maybe not quite get it physically, because it's almost something that you almost have to experience. And I don't know. I think a newly married person who's living their life within the laws of chastity will get it. I think a woman can get it, but she will get it after she's married usually. And then she'll be like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I don't think even if my dad had explained it more, I would have still understood it until after you're married and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a strange thing. It's like even we mentioned this already, but dancing at school dances. I like going to school dances, and I was a boy, and I probably liked them for the wrong reasons. But I wondered how many, because it wasn't just me. Boys talked about this, like how many girls went home recoiling in total abject fear when they were slow dancing with a boy and realized, what's up, and didn't get it, didn't get it.
And that's why we're encouraged to wear dresses that have backs, or
no, it's true.
That don't have high slits. I mean, there's reasons, and I think now with my girls, I just have to explain the why more.
Yeah.
This is why. It's not because, I want you to look like a nun or whatever,
No.
not attractive. That's not why. It's because you have a responsibility as a young woman to help the young men have a good time, but not go home feeling guilty for thoughts they may have had because of something you did, meaning what you wore, how you danced, what you said. You have just as much responsibility as they do for controlling who you are and and helping each other be better. I
Yeah.
think it's the same way even married. Is it okay for married moms to be dressing inappropriately just because I'm married? Well, to your spouse, yeah, whatever you do in your own home is fine. But you're still, if you're dressing provocative, even as a married woman, and you still have responsibility to men that you're not married to not encourage that,
Right.
I think.
It's interesting though. I mean, I'm glad to hear you say that because you've got a stable full of princesses there that you're going to have to take care of somehow. But um, and yet, even as you're talking, I understand how the other side hears that. They hear you saying, "Oh, I get it. It's the woman's fault." And so what we really need is for women like you to be able to explain just like you did, but even in stronger terms, like, no, I'm not saying it's a woman's fault. I'm saying that perhaps we haven't spent enough time understanding blows my mind in this century, but we haven't spent enough time understanding the dance of human sexuality. You think that it's just a matter of a decision, tr- try being a boy sometime, and a girl. Now, I will say too, though, in defense of women's virtue, why is it always the girl's fault if something happens? It's not always the girl's fault. Like, even though circumstances may be amiss, the boy has a responsibility to treat her like a daughter of God and a princess. And, to the extent that he's dating someone who is also loving it, see, I think a girl can be loving and kind and hot and all those things and also be completely appropriate and also can sort of smile sometimes and say, I'm not going to tempt you because my daddy told me what it's like to be a boy. And I care about you too much to make you feel those things. If you date me long enough, we might get married. But these girls who are giving it up, too quickly without any kind of commitment, and it's all over the place today. I feel bad for them.
They don't know what they could have.
Yeah.
They don't know that it could be amazing and special just for them.
Yeah.
And I think the media just portrays that too as, oh, everyone's doing it, it's just whatever. And so they don't know how amazing it can be when it's just one person, and you're just the one person too, and Heavenly Father is in that bond that just lifts it up to another level, and you feel safe. Like,
Yeah.
I think lots of times if you're promiscuous or whatever, there's no safety. You don't feel like you're safe. You don't feel protected or safe or cherished because it's just a weekend fling or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that you might even lose the ability to truly enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and it's not even. I was going to say cheapen it. That's kind of a dumb phrase because that's not even what I mean. I don't mean to cheapen the experience by participating in it too early. What I mean is you're robbing yourself of like the most incredible experience. Don't do that. Don't rob yourself of something that's going to be incredible. But
And you
I
can
don't
get
know.
hurt so much too. It's the most vulnerable you can be, and so it's the most you can be hurt so bad too. So why do you want to get hurt over and over and over?
Right.
If it's something that you can prevent, by choices you make.
See, this is why I think Heavenly Father blessed you with these little beauties, because you're a good little mommy, and you're going to teach them. You're going to teach them well, and I don't think you could have married anybody better. Really, Severin seems like he's great. I mean,
He is. In fact, I always wanted boys. I wanted all boys.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, I actually wanted 12 boys and a little girl. I thought, oh, we could throw a little girl in the mix, because
Did you say 12?
I did.
Okay,
I did.
and
then I had one, and I was like, what was I thinking? It's been interesting, the whole, once again, we have to be careful on YouTube. The sexuality push that's happening right now. I always wanted to be a boy. Always. They had easier. Oh yeah. They had easier. They got to play sport. They got to play football. I always wanted to play football. They had all of these. They didn't have to have a period. They had all of these things. But did I have the wisdom to make a change genetically to do that? No, I didn't. And now I'm glad I didn't. In fact, Severin's mom, who you would have never guessed, she said the same thing the other day. She's like, I always wanted to be a boy too. So it's really interesting. But my patriarchal blessing says, and this clarified a lot for me, because I did really want to be a boy, that you were who you are before you came here for a reason. You were, it doesn't say you were a girl, but basically that's what it says, and so that helped me a lot realize that, yeah, there's a reason I am who I am, and it's great, and I can still play football. I still won intramural championship t-shirts playing football, but yeah, you can still be a girl and put on the heels and get all dolled up too. So
absolutely. In fact, yeah, a woman that can do both is just amazing. Yeah. Yeah. And actually, it's probably more of a truly the way a woman should be or be able to be anyway. And yeah. Well, tell me this. As you look forward in your life, you're a mommy, and I know that's where you've dedicated your time. Now you're homeschooling. So really,
hopefully not next year.
Oh, okay. So you're doing okay.
But yes, right now we are. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what when you look down the road 5 years, do you do a vision board or a dreams board, or are you just kind of taking life day by day?
Most of it's day by day. Like, we both love to travel. In fact, your $1 million question, I thought I would love to take all of the extended family on a cruise.
Wouldn't that be great?
I would love that. We love to travel, and we love cruises, and I just thought that would be so fun for me. That's a selfish thing. I've since learned Severin's family does not like cruising.
Really?
Yeah, so after my family did the big one back, 8 years ago or whatever, then we talked his family into doing one because we had so much fun, and they didn't really enjoy it.
Why?
I think, some of them got sick, some of them got motion sickness. Yeah. I just don't think it was their thing. And so we were both like, oh, because we still had fun, but I think I told him I would love to go to Hawaii. I've always wanted to go to Hawaii. But we want to take our kids to Disneyland or Disney World before they're too old to enjoy it. But I don't want to be the mom with the stroller at the bottom of the ride who doesn't get to go on the ride because I'm with the stroller,
Yeah.
So, and I heard someone say, well, have your kids wear cowboy boots because it gives them an extra few inches. So they're 48 inches or whatever,
and hire a nanny.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing, though. I'm kind of paranoid about child trafficking, and I'm like, I don't have enough eyes for 7 kids, so we got to do it when they're old enough to. You stay next to mom. You have a buddy. You don't wander off, But so that type of thing. I think it's kind of an interesting situation. Severin's dad, they want to go on a mission, But that means the farm would kind of fall onto Severin. And I think he'd be the first to tell you that scares him to death. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't, business is not his strong point. He loves the growing and the agriculture and the planting and the harvesting, like that stuff. He's not a mechanic, and he doesn't enjoy the business aspect. So I think that's going to be interesting in the next 5-10 years, is how that, I keep telling him he needs to talk to Dave, talk to somebody about expectations, because he has a brother that works with the farm too, that has a different work ethic than what Severin and his dad have. And so there's some things that need to be ironed out there. For me, I think I would like to find something I'm good at, actually. I do a lot of things, but if you ask me, what's something you're good at? What's one of your strengths? I can't really answer that because I don't feel like I'm really good at anything. I feel like I can do a lot of things and be mediocre at a lot of things. I'd love to start my own playing. I'd love to take piano lessons.
Oh, okay.
I love music. I love the arts. I've taught myself to play, so what I can play, I mean, I can get by in church, but the organ is a cool instrument. Like, it is cool. Anyway, but seeing my kids, obviously, I think one of the reasons my parents are the way they are too is my mom's whole life is her kids. I mean, she is fully invested in her kids.
Yeah.
And Dad didn't have the family he wanted growing up. I mean, he came from a broken home. Lots of his aunts and uncles, got divorced, or they didn't have he didn't really have a role model of what he wanted. And he knew he wanted lots of family around. He was kind of raised as an only kid. He felt like his parents' divorce was his fault as a 6-year-old kid. And so I think he was so black and white because he heard what the brethren were telling him to do, and he was going to do it at the best that he knew how, so that he could get the results. If you do A and B, you will get C, and so I think that's one reason that they are or were or whatever the way they were. And I think that seeing that, you want your kids to, I don't want my kids, I can already see it in our oldest, I don't want her to feel the way I did growing up, as far as I don't want her to compare herself to people.
Yeah.
I think in my comparison, as far as like athletics and academics, made me better. I think my comparison as a physical, we all joke in my house, I'm the short fat one in our family. I mean, when I got to be taller than grandma, it was this big thing. You're taller than Grandma Melba, and so I think comparison as far as physical it's not good. It's not good for anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't help your self-esteem. It doesn't help you with your confidence. It doesn't help you excel, because you're so worried about what people perceive you as, that you focus on that when you could focus on so many other things.
Yeah.
And I think not getting the affirmation of being asked out on dates, that type of stuff played into that self-esteem, versus if I would have just been happy with who I was and not cared, I think I could have done even better at like sports and different things, because I wouldn't really care what other people were thinking. Like, I was just doing it for the love of the game versus doing it because I was trying to be better than somebody else, or I was trying to show that I was a Wells girl, and trying to live up to that Wells girl, what I perceived as what other people, they probably didn't even care. In retrospect, they probably didn't even care. But, not that I didn't love those things, because I love learning. I love where Michaela's at, because she's learning all this history and all this stuff, teaching it to her kids. And those are things I would love to, like when Cody was talking about loving history, I love that kind of stuff. I love culturals, like learning about different cultures and religions and seeing things from their perspectives. I would love to travel just to see, the cathedrals. And when I got to go to, I didn't really have to convince him very hard, because he loves to travel too. But before Kyrie was born, we got to go to New York City. And I used to think that I would be scared to go to New York, like the Ninja Turtles, New York, but I actually got to go once before we were married. And then when we were married, I love New York City. I love it. I love Central Park. I love St. Patrick's Cathedral, the history that's there. I don't know that I'd really want to live there. I could live there, I think, but I don't know that I'd really want to live there. I also got to go to DC, and I thought, just the main DC area. Obviously there's very scary places in these places too,
but the mall and the
mall
museums
was amazing, and I would have loved, we didn't have very much time, but it would have been so cool to spend more time there. Like Cody was saying, all of the church sites, or the Gettysburg, I'd love to do those. And those are just American history, there's all the European history and so many things. So, but is in that 5 or 10 years? Probably not. Realistically, probably not. But it's a goal. It's something I would love to do. I love family history, that kind of stuff. And I was thinking, I think where that might have started, it does say it once again, it does it in my patriarchal lesson too, but when we did go down to enter Grandpa, to get Grandpa Taylor, Carissa and I drove up from Provo, and after we got Grandpa out or whatever, we couldn't find the twins. And I could not leave until we found the twins. I was not going to leave the twins there. I like to picture what they would look like. Would they look like Aunt Tina, or would they look like, more like my mom, or just I've often thought, I wonder what they would look like, But I was not gonna leave them, and that's weird and funny. It's weird to say, because hello, they're dead. But I remember digging in the ground with Uncle Ivan until we found the little boxes. And obviously there wasn't a lot left. There was a blanket, a little blanket. Sorry. I got tissues because I knew this was going to happen. But I think that's where my love of family history started. And I felt that connection, that we couldn't leave them behind. We couldn't leave them behind. And my dad used to always say, no empty chairs. We don't want any empty chairs. And I think that's what this is, Tim, I think that's what this is doing for our family, is showing everybody they have a place, telling them they're loved no matter what, showing them we all have struggles, we all have fears, we all have insecurities. I think it's been really neat to see before Tennille's interview, it was Bard was the oldest, that you had interviewed. And I'm thinking, I'm 7 years older than Bard, like I'm the old one, but I think it's been really cool, like to see Cody and Drew and their, just how grown up they are, how well spoken they are. I mean, I feel like,
Drew's quite spiritual, more than I thought he would be.
yeah. And I wonder if some of that had to do with his accident. If he would have been like that, otherwise, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's been because I had having younger siblings, they would tell us stories about the younger cousins. But I thought it was really. I still think it's very fascinating that you have this in our family. You have this group of like 7 girls. A group of girls, and Rory is in the age too, but you have this group of girls, and then you kind of have a group of boys, and you have some Taryn's in there, and Catherine. I mean, you have some girls, and then you have another group of girls, and then you have another group of boys. Kind of this.
Yeah.
And I think that is one reason why our family and our cousins and our we are so tight, is because you have that group of same gender who are going through lots of the same things in the same, group. And I hope I didn't offend anyone and exclude anyone by saying that. But, I think like us we used to have cousin campouts at grandma's house, or we had different things and, just starting that tradition. I think the boys started it or kept doing it after we did it. And, those things are just those bonding things that make it so when you get together Sundays to play football on the front lawn, it's not awkward or weird because you're with each other, This is a fun thing, like this is a normal thing. And so I think that those
the KKKs I thought that was funny.
Anyway, so I think that was a long answer to what's going to happen in 5 years. But
no, it's great. I mean, that's what I want to hear, and that's what anybody who tunes into your interview is going to want to hear. They want to hear you getting into a cadence. They want to hear you getting into a rhythm and talking off of your heart. And that's what makes, I think, for powerful answers. Blair brought up that empty chair thing, and she got emotional. She got emotional. She didn't tell me that was something that your dad had sort of taught the family. But so this is another piece to it. I get to understand, oh, okay, now I hear the chair thing twice, and now I know where it came from. Right? So.
And I think a few times we'd have a family discussion, and my dad didn't cry very much. Way back then, he didn't cry. I mean, his dad was a Marine and a trucker. He didn't cry much. But when he talks about our family and not wanting to lose any of them, and once again, he's coming from a home where his mom smokes. His dad's a trucker, gone all the time. Don't get me wrong, he loves his parents and but he didn't see the home life that he wanted or wished for. Right. And so when he would talk about us, that's still where his heart is. He does not like to be alone. Like, he does not like it when he's by himself. And I'm like, give me alone. Like, I will take all the alone time you can give me. But he doesn't like it, and he wants his family around him, and he wants, I think Bard said it when we were kind of laughing about, or you asked him about my parents' mission, and Bard kind of said we're all kind of interested to see how this is going to go, because we're excited for them to learn who they are together.
Yeah, that's right.
Because they've always, I think...
Been surrounded by kids the whole time.
They have. Michaela was born at their 1-year anniversary. Like, their anniversary's on the 7th, and she was born on the 27th of March. And so they've always had kids around. They've always had, or, you know, Larry and Nicole got to live with them for a little while or whatever. And so I think they feel, anyway, it's going to be fun. It's going to, I hope it's going to be fun. It's going to be a great chance for them to learn who they are together. And
something that's going to come out of this, that just what I find interesting is, don't get me wrong, they're going to do fine. They're going to be great. They do not right now, do not like the idea of Montana. But because this happens with every missionary, I'm sure it happened with your dad too. By the time they're done, they'll want to move there. You know, they'll love the people.
I wouldn't be surprised anyways, just because Montana's much more conservative. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if Dad's like, okay, let's move to Montana after our mission, just because. Anyway,
I think you're going to fall in love with it. Maybe your mom not, because it is cold, but I mean, it is colder, but I don't know. It'll be fun to see. Did you go to Aunt Brenda's farewell?
It was the same day as Talmadge's, I think. And so I think, we went to Talmadge's.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see. I really think that your mother is more, how do I want to say this? She's, I actually think she's more prepared in many ways, spiritually, for a mission. But nevertheless, it is going to be interesting to see her growth from the time they leave to the time they come back. And your dad, you know, he went on a mission once, but he's going to be reminded. I know this is going to happen. He's just going to be reminded of all those thoughts and feelings he had the first time. And I think he's going to fall right back in the saddle. But he's going to have a new companion, and there's not going to be any transfers.
Exactly. Well, and if you think about it, my mom's only lived in Basin City.
Yeah.
I mean, she lived in Rexburg for a couple years.
Logan for a little while, right?
Yeah, when I was born. I mean, we lived in Idaho here and there, you know, and we lived in Yukon. I think that's one of my first memories was in Yukon. But really, she's only lived in Basin City. And so I think this will be great for her to.
Yeah, I hadn't really.
A little bit.
Yeah, and I hadn't really processed it till you just said that, but I think they might come back with a whole new perspective on things, you know, that'll be very healthy.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for them. I think it's going to be great. I love homecomings. I like farewells too, but their homecoming, I suspect, I don't know. I guess anything can happen on a mission, but I think that your mom and dad are going out in significantly better health than other folks that in the family that have gone out, but which means I think they'll come home in better health too. But I was taken a great strength out of the notion that Talmadge is struggling a little bit. And what I mean by that is, you know, when you so James is a seminary teacher. Michaela served a mission. James served a mission. So of course their children are perfect, right? Not so much. And the fact that they have the same challenges as everybody else, you know, it helped me process Kyler's struggles right now. And the kind of kids, and I suspect your daughters are this way too, but the kind of kids that are necessary for these days, because I've thought back to when I was on my mission. There is no way that I could have survived sitting in the apartment. No way. And go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I've thought a lot about the elders and sisters out right now, what Heavenly Father is preparing them for, to what kind of leaders they're going to be because of what they're going through right now. It would be miserable, and you're stuck with the same person, whether you like them or not. And I didn't realize, and in Talmage's mission, from what I understand, he can't even read Jesus the Christ or anything like that. I mean, it is strictly the standard works and listening to current like conference talks.
Really?
And I'm like, what about the saints, or what about Jesus the Christ or other books that are on LDS Tools or the Gospel Library and stuff? And from what I understood, he couldn't read those things. And I was like, well, that's got to be, I mean, you can't even gain knowledge. You can't even like have your mind be challenged. I mean, you can, but anyway, I was kind of shocked because I thought,
but you're right. It's in a very specific way. I mean, they can't watch. I get the wisdom of this. They can't watch YouTube videos. They can't share things that are on YouTube. There are a lot of tools that are very powerful that they are not even allowing them to look at.
But I had a thought too during this, watching my kids struggle with things that I never struggled. I love learning. I love going to school. I love reading. We used to play school as kids. I always have. If I would be a permanent student if I could afford it.
Professional student.
I would. I love it. But it's hard for my kids. And I thought, I wonder if one of Heavenly Father's challenges for us as parents is watching our kids struggle with things that we didn't struggle with. How do you work through that? And I see that with James and Michaela and Talmage,
Yeah.
Talmage is really struggling on a mission where I think James and Michaela, I think Michaela struggled. I know Michaela struggled. I think every missionary struggles. But I wonder if them as parents, a challenge or a test for them as parents is helping their child who's struggling with something that they may not have struggled with, how to process that. Like I see that with my kids that have learning disabilities. How do I help them when that was nothing I ever struggled with? How do I help them get through this?
Ironically, I could be wrong about this. This could just be me not really understanding James as well as maybe I should, but I ironically see, just one second. I ironically see Michaela, I believe, and I see Michaela as more adept at maybe being able to handle that kind of a challenge more than James. Michaela did confide in me one time, though, and I'm going to stop short of it because I don't want to misquote her, but she did confide in me one time that some of the challenges that she and James, the regular challenges that she and James face, in the way that they want to be perceived, and it was an admission that I wasn't surprised by it. I was surprised by the admission. But having a situation like this with Talmage is going to make them stretch. And who knows, maybe James has processed it already. Maybe he's fine. I can just imagine, though, what it must be like for a seminary teacher, 2 returned missionaries, to have a son now who's... People would expect my son to ask these questions, right? But that you don't necessarily think Talmage is going to be someone who would have those questions. So, yeah, it'll be...
But I think they're questions everyone needs to ask themselves at some point in their life. And so whether or not it's me now in my 40s, do I really believe? Am I really willing to teach this? Like, why am I out here? Am I going to teach this to my children? Is it something I really believe? Or if it's on your mission, we all have to be converted at some point in our lives. We are all converts at some point.
Let's talk about that for just a second, because I agree with you. What does that mean, though, to become converted? Because there are things, in Alma, does it mean that your faith is perfect in that thing? Yeah, your faith is perfect in that thing if the Spirit has testified to you. But you can't set aside your faith. And I've thought about that a lot, because we may feel the Spirit testify something to us of something, and therefore we have knowledge according to the scriptures. We have knowledge of that thing. Is your knowledge perfect? Yea, it is in that thing, but not in everything else, right? And yet we find ourselves still going back a year, 2 years, 10 years later going, wait a second. I don't quite remember what the Spirit testified to me. I mean, I know this is true, but I actually think this is true, but I have to have faith, because I've wondered, what does it mean to be converted? And I don't know if my thought process has matured or has evolved or devolved, but I think that to become converted actually to me means that you never stop trying. It doesn't mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not taking anything away from the scripture, but it doesn't mean that you can lay aside your faith in anything. Because I think first of all, how do you know you've been tried? And do you really want to be tried? Like have you listened to Tennille's interview? She said something so profound. I mean, it's just amazing. She was talking about how Heavenly Father wants to see how you react when you have money. He wants to see how you react when you don't have money. He wants to see how you react when you're challenged and when you're not challenged. I mean, she went through a whole litany of things, and I was just like, it's like, shut up. I mean, how smart are you? But she really taught me a principle the other night. It's a perspective I hadn't ever really considered. I know that seems odd to say because I'm 54.
And you're very smart. You've considered a lot of perspectives.
But not in that way. Actually, she helped me a great deal with that. I don't even think she knows. But
in one of your interviews, you asked, who do you go to, or I can't remember who you asked it, but who's your person that I think Tennille is very calm and she thinks through things, and she always has the answer. She said she didn't ever have the answer. She does, because she'll say something like that, or she'll say the atonement is big enough to cover that.
Right.
Which when you put it in that perspective, why not me? Someone gave a talk, why not me? And I'm afraid to ask that question. Like, I don't pray for patience on purpose. I'm not ready yet for that. But
right, because it seems like when you pray for one of those blessings, you don't get the blessing of patience. You get the blessing of being tested on patience.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't need that. No, I do need that. I need to get there. So I love that. I still think I'd like to have the challenge of having too much money and just
I was thinking the exact same thing.
I think I could try that maybe a little while.
If you do anything, Heavenly Father, please don't bless me with money. I don't think I could handle it.
Right.
Heavenly Father's probably like, I'm kind of a master of that.
Yeah. That's where the sense of humor comes in. He's got one.
Reverse psychology on me, yeah. Tim. I'm okay. Okay. All right. I get it.
Yeah, I like that part with you and Cole when you guys were talking about that too.
He's. I love Cole, and I didn't know that I would.
He's a softie, I think, like you are. Yeah. Like the tough facade. I got it. I'm cool like that. But watching him interact with his brother, and what he said about his fear and Laren, I thought that's a man right there. That's somebody who knows how to care for someone else.
Talking to your mom and dad. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I actually texted him afterwards just to say I really appreciated that. I really appreciate that you would say that you would be that vulnerable and say that, that. Anyway, go ahead.
I was able to talk to your mom and dad about, because she's the youngest, and you always worry about somebody who's far away and they're the youngest and they've got one baby. They're not like a veteran yet. But I I came away from that thing with Cole just with so much compassion. He's going to be fine. He just doesn't, he's just figuring out who he is. But the one thing that I did get from him is he loves Laren. He loves her. And are they perfect? No, but you know what? Tina and I have been married 30 years and we're not perfect. And I'd say your parents probably aren't perfect. It's a good thing your mom's got the patience of Job, though.
Well, you say that, it just cracks me. I still remember the day. So we could tell you every morning what we were going to have for breakfast. It was either oatmeal or cracked wheat, oatmeal, and Saturday was pancakes, and Sunday was cold cereal. Like right?
Like clockwork, yeah.
Every day. And none of us likes the cracked wheat, but what do you have for breakfast? You eat it, right? That's what you have. I still remember the day sitting at the breakfast table, and this was after I'd come home from like college. This was not that long ago. And Dad's like, Tyra, I hate cracked wheat. It's taken him, 25, 30 years to finally have Dad say, I hate cracked wheat. I hate cracked wheat too. And so it just cracks me up. I don't know, I look at my parents. So Severin and I were talking. One of the things that I think I wish my parents would have done different, and this is probably really the only thing that I can pinpoint, I wish they would have resolved problems in front of us. We never saw them argue, which I don't think they needed to argue. We never saw them raise their voices to each other. They always went in the back room or the office and had the discussion. But I wish that they would have. I think this might have helped Case with his reality. He has this thing with reality of what marriage and raising a family would be like. It might have helped him a little bit more, is to see what a relationship, hopefully healthy, but how you resolve conflict, because there's gonna be conflict, and just a healthy way to resolve that, a discussion, an adult discussion on, I don't appreciate the way this happened, or I don't appreciate this, or if we could do this way. I mean, and you don't have to do that with everything.
Right.
But I never once remember them ever having a discussion in front of us. And I think that might have helped. Because I know right now, Severin, I don't argue with Severin, because my problem is I will say something in the heat of the moment because I get excited that I don't really mean, or it will come off not how I mean it, because I'm not, like I said, I'm not really good on the spot. And once you say something, you can't take it back. And so
you can even apologize for things, but man, once they're out there, they're out there.
Because there's a little bit of truth, right? There's a little bit of truth in everything you say. Yeah. And so, and that was actually one reason why I was not afraid. I was concerned with interviewing, because I thought, I'm going to say something that I'm going to offend somebody, and not mean to, but because I haven't thought the correct way, or Bard put it good. He's like, we need to realize, not only do we need to know what to say, we need to learn how to say it. And I think that's really true, because lots of times I will say things just it's what I think, but I just say it without thinking of how to say it. That would be so much more productive. Or it's the same point, but it's not as offensive, or not as rude, or not as whatever.
Well, I'll give you an example. So we're up at the lake house, and I must have intimated something that I knew was being misinterpreted, because everybody answered this question, but the question was, your mom actually posed it to me. So Tim, do you wish, and maybe she heard me say something at some other time, but she's like, so do you wish you had dated other people, I think sometimes I can read through your mom, but do you wish you had dated other people instead of marrying Tina or something along those lines? And I had to really think about this answer because, and I suspect this isn't any different for anyone. It's not necessarily. First of all, I told him, I'm like, I quite frankly, I got lucky that Aunt Tina said yes to me. So let's start with that. Um, do I wish I had dated more people? I don't wish that I would have married somebody different, if that's your question. It sounds like that might be your question, because I can read you. Because I feel like I got lucky, and with every passing year, I feel like I got luckier and luckier, But there's nothing wrong with perspective. One of the problems with not dating more people is you sometimes don't learn how to appreciate the people you have, right? And so when you ask me, do I wish I would have dated more people? I understand the tenor of your question, but maybe you're looking at it wrong, because maybe what I'm saying is that maybe I wish I appreciated Tina more. Maybe I need a wider perspective. Maybe I wish that she would have gone on a mission, or that she had dated more people, so that we both could come to our marriage and be happy long term. Now, don't get me wrong; we're going to be married forever, and you get through it, but it's never perfect. You don't ever. Severin can look just like Tom Selleck, and there's still going to be arguments. I don't care.
Well, and if
Go
you
ahead.
had, so Severin and I were actually in Rexburg at the same time. I'm a year older than him, but he went a year before his mission. But if we had met then, I don't think, just because his interests and my interests are different. I always thought I would marry the athlete, the big, athlete, and our kids would be playing all these sports, and I would be coaching them all, and we would be out in the football field, Friday night lights, like you guys have talked. I hope that happens. I really do, but
It
I
will.
don't. I hope it does. I'm gonna have to be the one that teaches Jagger how to throw a football. It is. I'm gonna be the one that's out there teaching him how to play catch. It's just and I don't have a problem with that. I'm excited for that. But or shoot the basketball. I mean, Severin does go out and play with him, but he never played organized. He was on the swim team once, I think. And so, but he has lots of other. I mean, he brings creativity to our home. If I was to decorate our home, it would be very well, you can see it's kind of neutral, but that's probably because he did that for me. But it's it's just clean. Not a lot of artwork, not a lot of knickknacks, because I don't like to dust, and so not a lot of stuff. And he brings the art and the flair and the creativity, and he does the decorating and the painting and all that kind of stuff. And so our interests. So we got married later, in Mormondom, and I think it was one of those things where we both knew what the end goal was. We didn't want to play the game anymore. We both knew we came from good stock, and we both had the same goals. And obviously, I was attracted to him, and I hoped he was attracted to me. But actually, that's one of my fears. Not him per se, but before I got married, I was always afraid that my spouse would leave me.
Really?
Because of insecurities, just those insecurities we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And so anyway, he's very much a mama's boy. Like, him and his mom could spend hours in the garden, not talking, just anyway, just he's very different from what I would have I think that was one of my mom and dad's concerns. Well, my mom's concern in the beginning was we're so different. And I think that might be a little bit why sometimes he might feel a little bit like he doesn't fit in with the family as much, because him and Keo get along really well.
Mm.
I think because they both love to cook, they both are creative, they both have that flair. They both are into fashion. Cole's into fashion too, and Vard more now. But I mean, I have not gone shopping for myself since we've been married. Like he shops clothes shopping. Like he has way better taste than I do. And so I think that I don't even know how I got on this topic. You and Tina. You were talking about you and Tina. I think that dating gives us an opportunity to see characteristics. Everybody has the list, but to see characteristics that are really important, that are on that list. To see what you can and can't live without, to see what makes or breaks how you feel, like how they make you feel. Like I did date one guy, and he was very, he liked to be the pot stirrer, the devil's advocate, whether he believed it or not, he was always trying to pick a fight with somebody. Like, not in a malicious way, but he just was, and he's an attorney now.
Oh, well, there you go.
But that type of thing. And I got to where I was like, I don't like that. Like, I don't like confrontation. I don't like people to feel uncomfortable.
That's the way Aunt Tina is too. Yeah.
I don't like, I want everyone to feel welcome and wanted and appreciated. And anyway, so yeah, I don't know where we got on that, but anyway, so I think as I look back on my dating life, and not that it was very exciting or much, I do see the Heavenly Father's hand in it, as far as leading me to where I ended up, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Absolutely. Sorry, anyway, I just noticed some shadows popping on here.
I totally cut you off, though, with Aunt Tina. Nope. So go back to Aunt Tina. You and Aunt Tina. And dating. And if you wish she would have gone on a mission, or if she wished she would have dated more.
I do wish she had gone on a mission, though, and actually she was the youngest, and I think that her family was rooting for her to go on a mission too. I agree with them. I think it would have been a good thing for her. She's one of those people who is blessed to believe no matter what, but I think that her knowledge of the gospel could have grown by leaps and bounds if she had had an opportunity to serve, or taken the opportunity to serve. And so, yeah, I mean, I wish she would have done that. But see, the problem is that when you're in these conversations, you say something like that and somebody misconstrues that. They think that you're saying, "Oh, I wish she hadn't been there when I got off my mission." But obviously the first thing I was looking to do is get married. I mean, that's what I was on a mission. I was on a mission after my mission. My mission was over. Now I'm on a new mission to get married and have kids. And I don't know how prepared I was for some of the challenges of being an adult. In the mission field, it was easy. My bills were paid. It's not like I had to go make money and then also do everything else, I only had to focus on doing one thing. And so, to me, it's like, even going in the MTC, all of the mission experience for me was easier than regular life. My life before the mission.
Growing up on a dairy farm is not easy.
No, the hours were much longer. being on a mission is a little bit like a vacation. All you got to do is worry about loving people and talking to people, and but that's also why, like, I don't take any credit for this at all. I think it was just the spirit, but I had an exceptional mission. I mean, I had a lot of success, and but also because I was happy. Maybe that's one of the benefits of growing up on a dairy farm. It's like when you're out in the mission field, you are so happy because you're not working 24 hours a day. I mean, you are, but it's a different kind of work. Like, it's like being a lawyer. Don't get me wrong. I know lawyers work, but it's not the same as physical labor. Physical labor is much harder than cerebral labor. And I think, and even people who are in the cerebral world will admit to that. So, but I mean, it seems so corny to think about it now, but Tina and I went up above the Provo Temple. Oh my gosh, it seems so corny to even talk about this, but I asked her to marry me up above the Provo Temple on the grass up there.
You know what, Tim? That's where Severn proposed to me.
Really?
Are you talking about just the lawn right behind the temple?
Yeah, so you can see the valley out there behind the temple. Yeah. Yeah. Of course, that was only the first time. There were 3 other times. But I don't know. I think that one thing that you don't really realize until the sealing is, I actually don't even think I thought about it until the sealing. When we were in the sealing, the spirit felt very much like it did in the mission field, but the spirit of promise, the sealing spirit was there, and it was so strong. I'm sure you guys had the same experience, but it was so strong. At the same time, the weak side of me was like, is this really what I should be doing?
Oh, yeah. I got scared. I was like, this is a long time.
Yeah.
I think eternity is a long time.
Yeah.
Am I ready for this?
But that's also why the atonement's so important. You're not going to get through life without making mistakes. You're just not. I mean, there are people I know people who think they're getting through without mistakes, but trust me, no, the fact that you think you make no mistakes, that's probably a mistake.
Well, when you hear the brethren say they have to repent every day, you're like, oh, wait. What's that?
Oh, yeah.
Where am I at then?
Well, and they don't get too specific, but the fact that they face the strongest temptations, just like anybody else. I mean, I found that to be illuminating. Yeah. So, yeah, these interviews have been an eye-opener for me, because don't get me wrong, I went into it thinking that I would be the one that benefited the most. I did know that. I didn't know the way that I would be benefited. I just went into them hoping for better relationships, and I'm getting that, but I'm getting so much more than that. I mean, I've probably mentioned this, and if I have, I apologize if I already have, but it seems fresh to me every time, because I find myself thinking about you guys every day now, especially the people who I've interviewed. It's like, we pray for you every day, and that wasn't the case before. Not that we loved you guys, we cared, but it wasn't like,
it was more if there was a trial or a family problem, then we were all praying for Taryn, gratefully so, or we all prayed for, well, way back when Damien, when he was, it brings the family closer together. But yeah, with your interviews, you're like, you know what, maybe Wes could use a prayer today to not be so lonely.
Right.
I mean, that's got to be not fun.
Oh, Cole and Laren aren't exactly not lonely either. I mean, they're lonely together.
Exactly. Yeah. And so no, I love these, but I have to ask you, because I think, as I've thought about your questions, and I think people have probably perceived me a lot as a goody, or I'm better than thou type thing. Anyway, but I think as I've processed it, I never wanted to give off the impression of I'm better than you are. It was I have seen or have heard of the consequences of choices people have made, and I don't want those in my life. And
Well,
so I'm going to do the best I can to.
you're going to find the answer ironic. Golly, this is going to sound bad, but it's for the right reasons. My opinion of you actually increased, and here's why. It wasn't that I thought you were better than other people, or that you were a goody two shoes. I was processing everything about all of you kids through the lens of your mother and father. And I loved them, don't get me wrong. But, you heard the story about the boating at Priest Lake and stuff. And
it might have been me, Tim. I might have been me.
It could have been.
I think it would probably have been me.
It could have been. But, so you see the kids sometimes, even though you love them, you see them through the way the colored glass that you see the parents through. And it wasn't even necessarily like, I remember your mom saying one time, like, we were talking about problems and she's like, yes, I know Brock and I are too strict. And I'm like, no, Tyra, that's not what I'm driving at. It's not that you were strict. This is when I was kind of mad at her though. That's not that you were strict, even though you were. That's not it. See, it's like when a person says, tell me your biggest weaknesses. And when the person on the other side of the table says, I just care too much. Well, that's not a weakness. I mean, it can be. Don't get me wrong, I understand it can be, but don't give me a strength as a weakness, right? So don't tell me, we were just too strict. No, that's not what I'm driving at. What I'm driving at is, and I don't want to get here again because I think we moved past this, and I don't want your folks to feel any worse than they already do. But it was not that you were too strict, because you weren't too strict with yourselves. And that's not to say they weren't strict. They were. But like the example of Priest Lake, it's the reason I bring that up. It's not okay for someone else to get in the water, but it's okay for you to get on the water, And that was a struggle for me, because that's just, now, that's not to say I didn't think you were good. Before that, I thought you were very good. I thought all you kids were just the best. Who did I have the biggest? I mean, there was always the question about Tennille, but Tennille kind of cleared that up too. She kind of liked the people, thought she was the wild one, and she even had people, like, that expectation for her was set. She never really was, but the expectation for her was set by people saying things to her. When I heard that story about you, I just thought, that little sleeper, she has been, just coasting along, everybody thinking she's this little, ooh, look at my, little pigtails, I'm innocent, when really, she knows more about what's going on. I think that was the way that I interpreted that. Is like, I think Haley might know more about life than any of them. Not because you necessarily were making that mistake, but let's face it. Okay, when you're growing up, when you're going through life, some mistakes, though this is so bad, like wickedness never was happiness. I get that. But when you're learning, when you're going through things, some things can be fun. Until you realize that's not the way I want to live, So that's honestly how I felt. Is I thought you were thinking for yourself. I was surprised. No, seriously, I thought, hey, at least she's.
I now shattered that bubble because I really don't have
a clue. No, but you do, because I mean, you do now for sure. But as the years have gone by, and I had an experience with the boys one time that apparently none of us have gotten over, and I take responsibility for that. But Vard sort of brought it up. Your mom and dad bring it up all the time. Your mom particularly. I think your dad's just like, whatever. But they came over to play soccer on the soccer field one time. You've probably heard the story a gazillion times. But Vard tries to excuse me by saying, I think you were having a bad day. And so that's nice, because the boys are trying to give me a break. And maybe I was. I don't even remember. What I do remember, and I got into this with your mom just this last weekend, was like, I was like, well, Tyra, I might have been in the wrong and I might have been having a bad day, but your boys were being brats. They were being little stinking rotten brats that day. I'm sorry. You know,
I can see
that. Well, and she said, she's like, well, I'm not disagreeing with that, Tim. You remember, I had them come over and apologize. And I'm like, well, yeah, but we're still processing this experience, right? Where, you know, they tell the story of me kicking him in the butt, and, you know, Dax talks about flying through the air, and come on, that's a little bit of an exaggeration. I was upset, and I thought they did need to go home because I felt like they were being disrespectful. I felt like, you know, they weren't showing good sportsmanship and all of that. Was I having a bad day? I don't even remember. And I'm not even going to sit here and suggest that I treated them correctly. I'm going to tell you, though, they are my nephews. And guess what? I'm never going to abuse anybody, ever. I'm never going to abuse your sons, you know, whatever. They weren't abused that day. The fact that an uncle and some nephews get into a little tussle, so what? Why weren't we wrestling more? You know what I mean? Like, why were, you know, we play football all the time. Those boys were not traumatized by that experience. If anything, I think they went away stronger from it, you know, but.
Now they embellish it and brag about it.
Yeah, that's true. So, but my opinion of you, you know, Tennille asked me a question and she stopped me cold. She's like, what was your opinion of me back in the day? And I was like, oh my gosh, Tennille, I feel bad because I don't know that I remember what my opinion of you was. I'm not sure I remember. I do remember thinking that if any of the girls were going to be wild, it was going to be her. But I never, like she was talking about how your dad was freaked out over Michaela. I never saw that coming. Even.
Well, when she was telling the story, I would have been downstairs in the bedroom too. I don't remember any of it. I mean, I was oblivious to the whole thing. I personally, you know, it's interesting as we were talking about it. I think because I called Tennille today, I'm like, hey, I just watched your interview, you know? And I think one of the things too is mom and dad were worried because Michaela, the perfect child, had a boyfriend. And we were, you know, you don't have a boyfriend. And here the oldest is setting this precedence for all the other kids. Like I remember one time I actually hid in the back of the car. Andy and I did not have a good relationship. I didn't feel like he treated me and Tennille very nice. And so I remember one time I actually hid in the back of the car. And Michaela drove to his house for whatever, and I was in the back of the car for hours.
Really?
Yeah, and when she drove home, I mean, I think mom and dad were secretively happy that I was chaperoning, but I got in trouble for it, you know, because there's no cell phones, you know. Obviously, I didn't have a cell phone to say, hey, I'm hiding out in the back of the car, so they probably didn't know where I was. But But I think looking back now, like we had multiple family discussions about agency and these are the rules, and we're like, well, why is she not getting punished? Like, why is she not getting in trouble? You know, we're these rules, and they're like, well, she's having a date every other day because they made sure that Andy would ask one of his friends to ask Michaela out for a date so that they weren't back-to-back dates, you know, and we're like, come on, mom and dad, we're not stupid. We know what's going on. But, you know.
Like that was a way around the rule?
Yeah, because they weren't.
I didn't know that was going on.
If you look in the handbook, I think it says, for the strength of youth, anyway, it says something like, don't date consistently or don't date the same person in a row or whatever. So yeah, so he would have his friends ask out Michaela on these pseudo dates so that they weren't steady dating because there was a date in between. And
that letter of the law, not spirit of the law.
Exactly. Yeah. But anyway, and Michaela will tell you, Michaela will tell you that she wishes she would have got to know other people. I think for her, like Tennille said, it was definitely it was nice. She had acne really bad, and
Yeah,
that
she had
whole
been
thing.
kind of a gangly,
Uh-huh.
skinny teenager, and I'm sure. And back then, Andy, I mean, he
Oh, he
was.
was this football star. I mean, he
Yeah,
was
he
a
was.
big strapping, but
I was kind of
and
proud of her for landing a guy like
yeah,
that. I mean,
right,
yeah.
yeah. So but anyway, I don't know how we got on that either.
I
Anyway,
think it switched over to Michaela because I think I switched it over just because I was talking about my perceptions of you, and I was juxtaposing that against my perceptions of Tennille and Michaela. Because when you think about, it's just like, okay, like I don't throw Blair and Laren into a discussion of you three sisters, and I don't throw you three sisters into a discussion about them. Like they're two groups, right?
yep, yep,
And they came up at different times, but it's at the same time when you're talking about growing up where we did. I'm just down the road. When you talk about Laren, or I'm sorry, when you talk about Laren, you're talking about Laren and Blair. When you talk about Michaela, you're talking about Haley and Tennille, right? You're talking about all of them, and so even though there's individual experiences, um, do you realize how good you guys had it? Like you guys.
oh, yeah. Looking at it now, like I don't know what we did in heaven. In fact,
I know. It's
I
almost going to make me
wondered,
cry.
I wondered many times why we were blessed, why I was blessed to be in the family that I was in, and you can attribute it to being poor. You can attribute it to being having such a large family. You can attribute it to so many different things. Um, and I've asked my mom, I'm like, how did you do it? Because my kids, and she's like, you guys were a lot different than the kids now. I've been around your kids, and you guys, her kids were different than her grandkids. But I think, yeah, to have to be able to have two parents in the home, um, to have moms be able to stay home, you know, um, as much as you complain about farm life, I always wanted to marry a farmer.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't ever think it was going to happen because none of the boys my age were coming back to farm. Like I didn't have an outside circle to like farm boys in Idaho or farm boys in whatever. Well, I always wanted to, and that's all I really know. And so, like, when we did live in town, I'm like, I don't know how to raise kids in town. Like, there's only so many weeds you can pull. Um, I'm so grateful. And people could say, well, you didn't experience life. You know, you didn't get to fly. You didn't get to make your own choices. Those were made for you. Well, maybe my spirit was one that I'm okay with that. I didn't need to. I don't know.
Let,
Yes.
let me tell you now, looking back on it, some of the effects on others. When I talk to you guys, you're respectful, all of you. I haven't talked to Dax in a long time, but Case's kids called one night to say I should play it for you because it's so cute. Um, I think it was the oldest daughter. Thanks for the video. It was too long, but I mean, it was so cute, right? That doesn't happen a lot with other folks. I talk to you and to Neil and Michaela. It's always, I mean, you guys are good people, and don't let that go to your head because then you won't be so good. But truly, like your parents, they sacrificed and the things that you guys are doing to try to help them go on a mission and everything they deserve, because they had a goal in mind for how they wanted to raise you guys, and they did it. And I think even when they were in the middle of it, I don't even think they thought they were going to make it, because there were times, believe me, I was watching. It sucked. I mean, your dad was struggling. I mean, man, he was struggling until he decided to go back to school. Um, but they had that, but they were determined. Um, and they believed, this is a case where they believed in doing the right thing, even if everybody thought they were stupid for doing it. But the results that they're experiencing are, and this is where you kids are really a blessing, the results they're experiencing are the lives of their children. And every day that you guys live the way that you live, you're such a testimony to your folks. And I hope you don't ever lose sight of the fact that when you're being as good as you are and trying to raise a family and doing the right thing and getting married and you're bearing testimony to your parents about the fact that they did it right. And the good news for them is the pain of going through some of those experiences tends to dissipate over time. You know, I don't think they probably have as keen a memory of the hard times as they do now, looking at grandkids and their kids and being so proud of engineers and nurses and, you know, little children that are innocent, you know, that are they did it right. And who cares if it, you know, it might have been the corniest thing in the world, but what difference does that make? They did it right. It was the right way to do it, and they did it. They made the right choices, and you know, you can always second guess someone's choices, always. But I know plenty of people who had all the money in the world, who had all the degrees, who but neglected their family, and things haven't gone the same for them as they did for the Wells family. I even suspect that there are people who probably are astonished.
I'm astonished, Tim. It is amazing. You know, the more you get to know people in the church, however that might be, I look at our family and just am in awe that there's 8 kids and we're all striving to have no empty chairs. You know, I mean, it's yeah.
Yeah, it's
And,
a tough thing.
And for the most part, we love each other. We do. We love each other. But lots of I'm and even our extended family, I'm amazed. You talk to people and they're like, well, even on our other side of the family. So my dad has his sister who has 2 kids and his half brother who has 1. If I met on the street my 2 older cousins, that one's a year older than Michaela and one's in between Michaela and Tennille, I wouldn't know them. Like, I haven't seen them for years and years. Like, we lived, I mean, I was probably in elementary school or maybe junior high, probably elementary school. You know, and I just think even our Taylor extended family, which makes this so cool, even that we get along, that
Yeah.
we want to be together, that we want these relationships. You know, I think grandma, having her struggles with her cousins that I've heard about, that they couldn't even talk to each other, you know, and they were in the same school together, and that's not what she wanted. And so I think that's one reason why she wanted all the family get-togethers at her house. She wanted that family. And I think that's one of her great legacies, is that I know my cousins, you know, and this is helping me get to know them better, but I love them and I want to be around them and I want to know my uncles and aunts. And I think, yeah, I'm so blessed. I mean, I can't even imagine why, you know?
Most of the time, you're going to have to wait till you get to the other side to look back at mortality and say, "Oh, wow, what a great life we had." You know, you guys are getting the blessing of seeing it before you leave, which is really cool. Most people don't get that.
And not to
Um,
say there's not hard times ahead, because I'm
oh,
sure
sure,
there is.
sure.
And
But
I'm sure with as many grandkids, there's going to be struggles. In fact, we had a family discussion once, um, with mom and dad and the siblings. I don't know where all the little kids were, who knows, but about we need to make sure that we are loving no matter what, because with how many kids there are, something's going to happen.
has to the odds.
Whatever that something might be,
Yeah.
Something's going to happen where it may not fall in line with what we've been taught, or may not be a straight road, but will be a crooked road. Anyway, I just think that, yeah, forgiveness and love. I mean, like you said earlier, you just got to keep that that conversation open with love. You just have to.
That's all you got.
Yep.
My goodness. Okay, so here's the deal.
It's okay. All the kids are gone, Tim. You don't even have to cut. I mean, you can cut it as short as you want, but this is great.
Well, here's the we could. Here's the problem. It's like, my goodness, I've been able to talk to you longer than anybody, and that, I mean, it's amazing.
And I still
But
have questions for you.
well, that's why I think,
For another
yeah.
day.
And once I process through this and I get this first one up for other people to look at, and because I feel like, I mean, I probably knew you kids better than anyone, and yet I still feel like I didn't know you. You know, I'm learning more. It'll help me to know where to go. Plus, I can feel someone's spirit, you know, a little bit where they're coming from. And so trust me, we'll get back together again, even if it's not until the reunion. Something's going to happen, because I didn't even know about the reunion when I started these. And so we'll do it again, but, and then you can ask me whatever you want, and then I'll lie. I'm just kidding.
It's vulnerable.
But,
it's vulnerable. We're going to be vulnerable.
Yeah. Ironically, I have the hardest time doing what I ask other people to do. Wow, Haley, it's weird to even say, because in a lot of ways I feel like you're my little sister or something.
I would be happy to claim you as a big brother. So I was
I
wanted
claim
one.
you. Well, thank you for spending all this time. I mean, it's amazing. But truly, it's been my blessing. It's been my joy to get to know you more and hear you talk. And I get such a thrill out of seeing you as this little mommy that's just blossoming. You know, you never know what to expect, you know.
There was one time I remember, Tim, and I don't know if you remember, and I don't even know where we were at for sure, but you gave me one of the biggest compliments, because as a farmer's wife of lots of little kids, most days I'm grumpy. And my kids will be like, "Mom, you did your hair. Where are you going?" You know, like, it's a big thing. Like, they notice when, "Mom, you're not wearing sweats. Like, what are you doing?" You know. But you mentioned that I remember you telling me I was beautiful.
You are beautiful.
And that made such a big deal for me, because like I said before, I've never felt that. And anyway, I just wanted to tell you that I really appreciated that. Because yeah, you kind of lose that a little bit. I mean, not that I ever felt like I had it before, but you definitely lose that when your body changes over and over and over, and you're up and down and all over. But anyway, that was something I will always remember.
Oh, that's
And I
sweet.
always appreciate it.
Severin's lucky to have you.
I don't know about that, but
No, I don't know. I think that you know how to love. And I mean that in every way, emotionally, physically. And I think that's what I think Severin, I think you're a blessing to Severin. And yeah, well, you've always been beautiful to me. I don't know. I guess I didn't see, you'd mentioned that the teasing and stuff that went on. I didn't see that girl. I didn't see that one. So anyway, I'm glad it meant something.
You did. So anyway.
Well, I love you.
Love you. Thanks for doing this. Seriously, like, it's so cool.
Well, thanks for giving so much time, because I mean, you were a trooper.
Well, like I said, the kids are still gone, so this has been great.
Be careful, because I'll take advantage of it again.
Okay.
All right. Well, be good. Say hello to the family, and say hi to Severin.
Tell your family hi too.
Will
all
do.
of them.
I
I know it will be hard, but I would love to get to know your kids better.
Okay.
Love it.
All right.
It's fun. Love you.
Love you too.
Okay.
We'll
Till
talk
next
soon.
time. Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.